Despite all the hardship we encounter in our lives, we try to persevere through. Every struggle that we come to or obstacles we face is just another trial we need to adapt and overcome. In the book Lakota Way in Chapter 2, it discusses perseverance throughout all the village. I will be discussing how the village adapted and overcame with perseverance in mind, what perseverance means, and some examples from the book, and how this can relate into our own lives. In the novel Lakota Way, it tells us of a family with Indian heritage. There's a village that encounters a massive storm that takes over the village. There's a man named Cloud and his wife Plum. Cloud has a reputation in the village of being the best warrior there is, capable of defending his family and tribe in any way possible. Cloud was madly in love with Plum. These two were taught to strive in spite of any difficulties they may face. There is a long ridge in South Dakota west of the prairie country. This was once called the Great Muddy. The ridge looks very out of place and does not fit into the natural environment. Surrounded by flat land, this ridge looks as if someone had put it there. There was a time when the ridge was not there, when Cloud and Plum had been living, the summer of many storms. In the night of the storm grew larger than ever before. Cloud and Plum were frightened, but knew they would be okay, because they had each other to hold. In the dark of the night, the storm grew louder and louder. Something giant crashed the teepees, and Cloud and Plum listened as the villagers screamed like never before. Finally, the creature hit Cloud's house and snatched his wife Plum. The giant swallowed up all the village girls, including Plum, and began on his path. Cloud knows the village giant as Ia. The village turns to the council for advice on the matter. No matter how many men they send, Ia would be stronger than everyone. Cloud knew if he could assemble the best group of all of them, together they could take down the giant. Perseverance is not something someone is born with. It can be taught to people. Cloud's perseverance with his techniques illustrate his single-mindedness. Perseverance, Marshall writes, enables people to survive hardship and pain. It is once that people live through hard times that they carefully feel success. Without struggling, one does not really know how to appreciate what success feels like. When Cloud acknowledged that he is going through hardship with the village and not alone, this drives Cloud to be able to push through his hard, challenging experiences, and is now looking at ways to be able to persevere in this situation and help others to do the same. Furthermore, the village men learned through their experiences what it takes to persevere and have strong hearts and minds to move forward in this battle. In the battle, the men decided to send out the team they had brought together to fight Ia. The men shared such a plan to get all the women and girls back from Ia's stomach, but it was a risky one, and some of the men questioned Cloud's idea. Cloud decided that they would track the beast and find where Ia had been moving to. Once they found the giant, Cloud had told the battle group what they were going to do. The plan had been set. The men would dig a deep hole big enough to trap Ia in so he could not get back out. The warriors asked Cloud how they would get the giant to go into the hole, and Cloud's response was to lure it there. The men were very confused, but Cloud decided since he led the men there, he would encounter the giant since Ia was always hungry. Cloud would offer himself as food to lure the giant into the deep hole. This was such an act of heroism. Cloud said all he could think about was his beautiful Plum, who he was going to rescue from the giant's belly. Once the hole was dug and the men were ready, Cloud caught the attention of the giant and began running. With all of his force, he would sprint. In this run, he was so tired from all the hard work from the hole and making sure the men had what they needed, Cloud fell and barely missed the giant's hand. Cloud thought about giving up because the giant was going to strike again. Cloud visualized Plum in a wedding dress and having children of their own. This made Cloud dig so deep and find the last bit of courage that he had stirred up and persevere through to keep pushing to make the giant go down. The giant fell in the hole and Cloud watched as the dirt and branches stormed around. Once Cloud settled and Ia had taken the last breath, Cloud jumped down and cut the giant's stomach open. Cloud grabbed Plum, barely alive, and took her to the stream to get cleaned up. She had survived. This shows a huge amount of perseverance and strength from the men, and especially Cloud. Knowing how hard this trial was and almost dying twice from it is just baffling to think how could someone go on. but this demonstrates how much perseverance he had to go on and fight for what he wanted. I think perseverance is being steadfast in doing something no matter the difficulty or delay in achieving success. I think for everyone in today's world, this can sometimes be a very hard pill to swallow, especially if it is a goal that you've wanted for so long but get delayed in. Most people will quit or give up, but the few people who choose to make it happen and dedicate themselves find that the outcome is far greater than anything you thought in the beginning. I think it is hard to teach perseverance, but it definitely can be obtained by many. You just have to be uncomfortable with being comfortable. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable for some things and really set your mind on something even if it doesn't work out the first time around. My linguistics and cultural history / memory influenced how I interpreted this chapter because with some aspects of my life, there have been tough times where you really just need to buckle down no matter how hard you work at something and keep working harder. Cloud was an amazing example of persevering through even when the giant seemed too big for him to deal with. He found a way to make sure his end goal of getting Plum back was reached, and I was truly touched by that. I do not believe there is a public speaking without storytelling. Public speaking is to give a story and such imagery to the audience so that they can follow along and feel as if they're in the speech themselves. It makes the speech more interesting when you can be super descriptive and story tell as well. Some different ways stories can grab access to different communities of people can be how you tell the story, especially if you know audiences. For example, the Lakota way, I feel especially chapter 2 was centered around a land of Indians and how it was created in their eyes. This also allows us to be able to see how they believe things were created and gives an insight into their culture. I think this can also go the other way in distancing people from social spaces, such as this chapter saying a ridge was built from a giant who eats people. That could sound a little crazy to other cultures if they do not believe or have the same beliefs. In conclusion, I've learned that even though this chapter was on the topic of perseverance, that as I was writing this, there was actually a lot of other options I could have taken to describe this chapter. So essentially it opened my eyes to other ideas. I would like to work on writing better body paragraphs that flow a little more. I have all these ideas but can never get them across how I would like it. It can be a bit frustrating at times. I would like to challenge myself to make my paragraphs a little more structured in a way others can see my visions. Thank you.